Ambassador Elena Vasquez had seen many strange things in her 20 years of space travel, but nothing prepared her for the Galactic Council Station. The massive structure floated in the dark space near the galaxy's center, bigger than Earth's moon and glowing with the light of 1,000 different technologies. Elena walked through the long corridors with careful steps. Her simple human clothing looked plain next to the colorful robes, metal suits, and energy fields that other species wore. She had spent 2 months traveling here from Earth, and now she was about to learn humanity's fate. The council chamber was enormous. Thousands of seats rose up in circles, each one designed for a different type of alien body. Some seats held creatures that looked like walking crystals. Others had beings made of gas floating in clear containers. There were species that looked like giant insects, others that seemed to be made of living metal, and some that Elena could not understand at all. At the center of the chamber stood the high platform, where the most powerful species sat. The Quellian Chancellor dominated the space with his 12-foot-tall crystal body that sparkled with inner light. His species had ruled the galaxy for longer than human civilization had existed. Elena took her place in the small section marked for unclassified species. Only a few other seats were occupied in this area. Most species had already been given their place in the galactic order. The Chancellor's voice echoed through the chamber without him opening what might have been a mouth. The sound came directly into Elena's mind through the translation device all visitors wore. We gather today to complete the evaluation of species 847 Delta, known as humans, the Chancellor announced. This species has been under observation for 200 standard cycles since they achieved faster-than-light travel. Elena felt her heart beating faster. 200 years of watching and testing had led to this moment. The evaluation committee has reviewed all data, the Chancellor continued. Humans show adequate intelligence for basic tasks. They reproduce at acceptable rates. They show proper respect for authority in most situations. However, they display concerning levels of independence and creativity. Elena frowned. On Earth, independence and creativity were considered good things. Therefore, the Chancellor said, his crystal body glowing brighter, humans are classified as Tier 7, industrial compliance species. The words hit Elena like a physical blow. She had studied the tier system during her journey here. Tier 7 meant slavery with extra steps. A new voice entered her mind as a Zentani representative stood up. The lizard-like creature had scales that changed color as it spoke. The terms of compliance are as follows. All human colonies beyond the Sol system will be evacuated within 5 standard cycles. All military vessels will be surrendered to Council forces. 30% of the human population will be relocated to provide labor for Council projects. Elena stood up slowly. I request permission to speak. The Chancellor's light dimmed slightly. Unusual, but permitted. You have 1 standard minute. What about our right to self-determination? Elena asked. What about our sovereignty? A sound like laughter came from several parts of the chamber, but it was not friendly laughter. The Zentani representative's scales turned bright red. Rights are assigned by the Council based on species capability. You are Tier 7. You have the rights of Tier 7. Which are? Elena asked, though she feared the answer. The right to serve efficiently and the right to reproduce under Council guidance, the Chancellor answered. This is generous. Some species receive only the first right. Elena looked around the chamber. Thousands of alien faces stared back at her. Some looked bored, others seemed amused. None looked sympathetic. I need time to discuss this with my government, Elena said. Very well, the Chancellor replied. You have 72 standard hours. The compliance documents will be provided to you. Study them carefully. Non-compliance is not permitted. Elena was escorted from the chamber to a small guest area reserved for visiting species. The room was comfortable but clearly designed to make visitors feel small and isolated. She sat at the single desk and activated her communication device. The call to Earth took several minutes to connect across the vast distance. When President Chen's face appeared on the screen, Elena could see the worry in her eyes. Elena, please tell me you have good news, the President said. Elena took a deep breath. They want to turn us into slaves, Madam President. They're calling it compliance. But that's what it is. She explained the council's decision while President Chen's expression grew darker. When Elena finished, there was a long silence. "What are our options?" the president asked. "According to them, we have no options. We comply, or they make us comply." Elena spent the next day reading through the compliance documents. The paperwork was enormous. Thousands of pages of rules and regulations that would control every aspect of human life. Where people could live, what jobs they could have, how many children they could bear, what technology they could use. One section caught her attention. It was about restricted technologies, things that compliant species were not allowed to develop. The list was surprising. Advanced artificial intelligence, certain types of weapons, faster-than-light communications, and something called reality manipulation technology. Elena realized that the Council was not just controlling species through force. They were keeping them weak by preventing technological advancement. On her second day, Elena walked through the station's public areas. She watched other species going about their business, all following their assigned roles. The insect-like Catherian workers cleaned the floors with mechanical precision. The floating gas beings served as translators, moving between groups without any apparent free will. Everyone seemed content, but Elena could not shake the feeling that she was watching a prison where the inmates had forgotten they were prisoners. On the third day, Elena received another call from Earth. This time, it was not just President Chen. The entire World Council was present, along with Admiral Sarah Okafor, and representatives from every major human colony. "We've made our decision," President Chen said. "We will not comply." Elena felt a mix of pride and terror. "Madam President, you understand what this means? They have ships from hundreds of worlds. Their technology is thousands of years ahead of ours." Admiral Okafor leaned forward. "Elena, humanity has faced impossible odds before. We've never been good at doing what we're told, especially by bullies." "What message should I give them?" Elena asked. President Chen smiled grimly. "Tell them exactly what they need to hear." Elena prepared for her return to the council chamber, knowing that in a few hours, she would either save her species or doom it. She had never felt the weight of representing all humanity so heavily, but as she looked at her reflection in the mirror, she realized something important. Win or lose, at least they would face their fate as free beings making their own choice. The time for compliance was over. Elena walked into the council chamber for the second time, but everything felt different now. The same thousands of aliens sat in their assigned seats. The same crystal chancellor dominated the center platform. But Elena was no longer the nervous ambassador who had arrived 3 days ago. She carried with her a small data pad containing humanity's response. The weight of it felt heavier than a planet. The chancellor's voice filled her mind as she took her place. Species 847 Delta has returned to provide their acceptance of council classification. This is a formal ceremony witnessed by representatives of 846 compliant species. Elena looked around the chamber. Every seat was filled. This was meant to be a show, a demonstration to the galaxy that no species could resist the council's will. The assembled aliens watched with various expressions of boredom or mild interest. To them, this was just another routine submission. "Ambassador Elena Vasquez of the humans," the chancellor continued, "you will now formally accept your species classification and begin the compliance process." Elena stood up slowly. The chamber fell silent. Even the constant background hum of alien conversations stopped. "I have a message from the government of Earth and all human colonies," Elena said, her voice carrying clearly through the translation system. "Proceed with your acceptance," the chancellor replied. Elena looked directly at the crystal being. "Humanity respectfully declines your classification." The silence that followed was complete. Elena could hear her own heartbeat in the quiet. Then the chamber exploded with noise. Aliens chittered, roared, whistled, and made sounds that had no human equivalent. The chancellor's crystal body flared with bright light. "Silence," the chancellor commanded, and the chamber instantly went quiet again. "Ambassador, you appear to misunderstand. This is not a request. This is an assignment." Species do not decline council classifications. With respect, Chancellor, Elena said. We just did. A Zentani representative stood up, his scales flashing angry red. This is impossible. No species in 50,000 years has rejected council authority. Elena pulled out her data pad. Then let us be the first. She activated the device, and her words appeared on screens throughout the chamber in hundreds of languages. I, Elena Vasquez, speaking for all of humanity, hereby formally reject the classification assigned to our species. Furthermore, we are withdrawing from the Galactic Council entirely. The reaction was immediate chaos. Aliens jumped to their feet, screaming in languages that broke the translation system. Several species demanded immediate military action. Others called for Elena to be arrested on the spot. Through the noise, Elena continued speaking. We thank the Council for the opportunity to participate, but we choose to go our own way. The Chancellor's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Withdrawal is not possible. The Council governs all sapient species. Not all, Elena replied calmly. Not us. A new voice entered the conversation. Admiral Krenks of the Haduri Empire rose from his seat. The massive, armored creature towered over everyone around him. Human female, you do not understand the consequences of defying the Council. We have fleets that could turn your homeworld to ash. Elena nodded. Yes, you probably could destroy Earth, but that wouldn't make us compliant. That would just make us dead. And dead species don't provide labor for Council projects. This seemed to surprise some of the aliens. Elena continued. You see, we've been thinking about this for 3 days. You need us alive to be useful, but we've decided we'd rather be free and in danger than safe and enslaved. The Chancellor's light dimmed as he processed this. You would choose extinction over compliance? If necessary, Elena answered. But we're hoping for a third option. We know in today, if we have to expellant. There is no third option, the Zentani representative snarled. Elena smiled. There is now. She activated another function on her datapad. Suddenly, the air above the chamber filled with holographic images. They showed human colonies across space, all busy with frantic activity, ships being loaded, installations being dismantled, entire cities being packed up. While I've been here talking to you, Elena explained, humanity has been moving. We're leaving Council space entirely. The aliens stared at the images in shock. The Chancellor's voice was quieter now. Where will you go? The Council controls the entire galaxy. The galaxy is a big place, Elena replied. Bigger than your maps show. There's a lot of empty space out there. And we're good at living in places others think are impossible. Admiral Krenk stood up again. This is madness. You cannot survive without Council protection and resources. Maybe not, Elena agreed. But that's our choice to make. The Chancellor was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice carried something Elena had not heard before, uncertainty. What of the species who might follow your example? What of galactic order? That's not our problem anymore, Elena said simply. We're resigning. She walked to the center of the chamber and placed the datapad on the high platform. This contains our formal withdrawal from the Galactic Council. It also contains the coordinates of our colonies for anyone who wants to negotiate trade agreements in the future, as independent equals. The chamber erupted again, but this time Elena could hear something different in the noise. Fear. The idea of a species simply leaving had never occurred to them. Security forces began moving toward Elena, but the Chancellor stopped them with a gesture. Let her go. She speaks for a dying species. Elena shook her head. Maybe. Or maybe we speak for a free species. Time will tell. She turned and walked toward the exit. Her heart was pounding, but she kept her steps steady and calm. Behind her, the chamber filled with angry voices demanding action. Punishment. Examples to be made. At the exit, Elena stopped and turned back. The entire council was watching her. For what it's worth, she said. This could have been different. We came here hoping to be partners. Instead, you offered us chains. Don't be surprised when other species start noticing the difference. Elena walked out of the council chamber and headed for the docking bay where her ship waited. She could hear alarms beginning to sound throughout the station as the council realized the implications of what had just happened. As her ship undocked and began its journey back to human space, Elena sent a message to Earth. It's done. We're officially on our own. The response came quickly from President Chen. Good. Come home, Elena. We have work to do. Elena looked out at the stars as her ship jumped to faster-than-light speed. For the first time in days, she felt hopeful. Humanity had just declared independence from the most powerful force in the galaxy. Now they had to figure out how to survive it. Behind them, the council station grew smaller until it disappeared entirely. But Elena knew this was not the end of the story. It was just the beginning. The galaxy was about to learn what humans did when someone tried to put them in chains. Admiral Thrax of the Zentani Enforcement Corps had crushed rebellion before. In his 300 years of service, he had brought 17 species into compliance. Some had resisted with weapons, others had tried to hide, but all had eventually surrendered when faced with the full might of Council forces. Humans, he decided, would be no different. The compliance fleet that assembled at Council Station was massive. 50,000 ships from dozens of species, all united in restoring galactic order. The fleet included Hadori battleships the size of cities, crystalline energy vessels that could crack planets, and Zentani strike craft that moved faster than light itself. The humans have had 1 week to reconsider, Thrax announced to his fleet commanders. We will find them, show them the consequences of defiance, and bring them back to face justice. The first target was New Geneva, humanity's largest colony outside Earth. Thrax expected to find a world full of terrified humans begging for mercy. Instead, his scouts reported something unexpected. Sir, the planet appears to be empty. Thrax stared at the images on his command screen. New Geneva's cities were intact but completely deserted. The streets were clean, the buildings undamaged, but there was no sign of human life anywhere. Impossible, Thrax growled. Scan for underground facilities. They must be hiding. The search teams found nothing. It was as if 10 million humans had simply vanished into space. Admiral, his intelligence officer reported, we're detecting some kind of beacon broadcasting from the planet's surface. Put it on screen. A human face appeared. But it was not Elena Vasquez. This was a younger woman with the same stubborn expression Thrax was beginning to recognize in human features. Hello, Council Forces, the woman said. I'm Captain Sarah Chen, of the Human Colonial Defense. By the time you see this message, New Geneva will be empty. We told you we were leaving. The message continued. You probably think you can just take our stuff and move in. Feel free to try. We've left a few surprises. The transmission ended, leaving Thrax staring at empty air. Sir, his tactical officer called out. Should we land troops? Yes, but carefully. Scan for weapons and traps. The landing went smoothly at first. Council forces secured the spaceport, the government buildings, and the main residential areas without incident. Everything was clean and organized, as if the humans had planned their evacuation perfectly. Then the problem started. The first team that entered the power plant disappeared. Their communications cut out suddenly, and when rescue teams arrived, they found empty armor suits and no trace of the soldiers inside. The water treatment facility exploded when engineers tried to restart it, but the explosion was contained and caused no real damage. It was more like a warning than an attack. In the agricultural center, teams found that the humans had done something to the soil itself. Any non-human who touched it directly fell asleep and had strange dreams about being tiny insects crawling through endless mud. What kind of species weaponizes their farming equipment? Thrax demanded. His science officer, a floating gas being called Vorth, made worried sounds. Sir, these are not traditional weapons. The humans have turned their entire infrastructure into a puzzle designed to frustrate and delay us. They knew we would come here. The pattern repeated across human space. Every colony was empty but full of surprises. On New Manchester, Council forces found that the humans had reprogrammed all the entertainment systems to play the same annoying human song over and over again. It took 3 days to make it stop. On Hope's Landing, the artificial gravity randomly reversed itself, sending alien soldiers floating helplessly toward the ceiling. The humans had somehow made gravity itself uncooperative. New Osaka was the worst. Everything in the city worked perfectly. Too perfectly. Doors opened before anyone approached them. Lights turned on and off in patterns that seemed to follow the aliens around. Food dispensers offered meals that were technically edible but tasted terrible to every non-human species. They're playing with us, Thrax realized after 2 weeks of empty colonies and elaborate pranks. They want us to waste time here while they escape. But escape to where? Long-range sensors detected massive energy signatures at the galaxy's edge, far beyond any known star systems. When Thrax sent scout ships to investigate, strange things happened. The first scout ship returned with its crew speaking backwards. They were not injured, just confused and unable to explain what they had seen. The second scout ship came back, painted bright pink with flowers growing on its hull. The crew insisted they had not been attacked, just improved. The third scout ship did not come back at all. "Sir," Vorth reported nervously, "I think the humans are testing new technology on our scouts." Thrax studied the star maps. The energy signatures were growing stronger, not weaker. Whatever the humans were building out there, it was getting bigger. "How long since they left Council space?" he asked. 6 months, sir. And in that time, they've evacuated dozens of worlds and transported millions of people to unknown locations. Yes, sir. And they've been busy. Intelligence reports suggest they're no longer following Council restrictions on dangerous technologies. Thrax felt a chill run through his scaled hide. The Council banned certain technologies, not because they did not work, but because they worked too well. Things like self-improving artificial intelligence, reality-altering physics experiments, and weapons that could destroy entire star systems. You mean they're developing forbidden technology? Sir, they're developing everything. Our deep space monitors have detected energy patterns consistent with at least 12 different banned research programs. Thrax looked at the fleet status report. After 6 months of chasing empty colonies and getting pranked by human technology, his forces were tired and frustrated. Ship captains from different species were arguing with each other. Some wanted to return to Council space and let the humans go. Others demanded more aggressive action. "Sir," his communications officer announced, "we're receiving a transmission from the energy signature area. Put it through." The same young woman from New Geneva appeared on screen, but she looked different now. More confident, more dangerous. Behind her, Thrax could see the interior of a ship that followed no known design principles. "Admiral Thrax," she said, somehow knowing his name. "I'm Captain Sarah Chen of the Human Free Fleet. We've been watching your progress. Very thorough work cleaning up our old homes. Surrender now and your species will be treated with mercy." Thrax growled. Sarah smiled. "Actually, we were hoping you'd come find us. We have something to show you." The transmission showed a view outside her ship, and Thrax felt his blood freeze. The energy signatures had not been random construction. They were ships, thousands upon thousands of ships, but not like anything in Council databases. These vessels seemed to bend space around them. They moved in ways that violated physics. Some appeared to be the size of moons. Others were small but radiated power signatures that hurt to look at. "We've been busy," Sarah continued. "Turns out, when you're not worried about following someone else's rules, you can accomplish amazing things." "This is impossible," Thrax whispered. 6 months ago, I would have agreed with you," Sarah replied. "But we've learned something important. The Council doesn't just control species through force. They control them by limiting their imagination." The transmission ended, leaving Thrax staring at his fleet of 50,000 ships that suddenly felt very small. His communications officer was receiving frantic messages from scout ships reporting similar human fleets appearing all across the galaxy's rim. Not attacking, just watching. "Sir," Vorth said quietly, "I don't think we're hunting them anymore." Thrax realized with growing horror that his science officer was right. Humanity had not been running away. They had been getting ready. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the HSF Defiance, watching Admiral Thrax's fleet approach through space that no longer followed normal rules. Around her, human technicians worked at control stations that seemed to grow from the ship's walls like living crystal. "Ma'am," her science officer reported, "the Council fleet is maintaining standard attack formation. They still think we're using their physics." Sarah smiled. 6 months ago, she had been a simple colonial transport pilot. Now she commanded a vessel that could rewrite local reality as easily as changing course. Freedom, it turned out, was an excellent teacher. "Open a channel to the Council fleet," she ordered. Admiral Thrax's scaled face appeared on the main screen, his expression showing confusion and growing fear. Behind him, Sarah could see his bridge crew struggling with control panels that were apparently malfunctioning. "Human captain," Thrax said, his voice trying to sound commanding but failing. "You will surrender immediately. Your ships are surrounded." "Actually, Admiral," Sarah replied pleasantly, "your ships are surrounded. You just can't see it yet." She gestured to her tactical officer, a young man named Martinez, who had once been a factory worker before becoming humanity's leading expert in impossible weapons. "Show them," Sarah said. The space around the Council fleet suddenly filled with light. But this was not normal starlight or ship emissions. This was something that made alien sensors scream in protest and hurt to look at directly. When the light faded, Thrax's 50,000 ships found themselves inside a sphere of human vessels that had not been there moments before. The human ships moved in patterns that broke every law of physics, appearing and disappearing, changing size, and occasionally seeming to exist in multiple places at once. "How?" Thrax whispered. "Turns out," Sarah explained, "when you spend 50,000 years telling everyone what's impossible, you miss a lot of possibilities. We've had 6 months to explore ideas your council banned." She walked to the center of her bridge, where a holographic display showed both fleets. "Would you like a demonstration?" Without waiting for an answer, Sarah nodded to Martinez. One of the smaller human ships suddenly grew to 10 times its original size. Another ship became translucent and passed directly through a council battleship without affecting it at all. "Localized reality adjustment," Sarah explained casually. "We can make our ships bigger, smaller, harder, softer, or convince the universe they're made of something else entirely." A crystalline energy vessel in Thrax's fleet fired a weapon that could normally destroy planets. The beam struck a human ship and simply turned into a shower of harmless flower petals. "Energy redirection," Sarah continued. "We've taught our ships to be very polite about incoming weapons. They accept the energy and turn it into something nicer." "This is impossible," Thrax shouted. "These technologies were banned for good reasons." "Banned by whom?" Sarah asked. "You? Your council? Who gave you the right to decide what the universe is allowed to do?" She activated another display showing the scope of human expansion. The Council fleet was not facing one group of rebels. Humanity had built a dozen massive construction facilities across the galaxy's rim, each one producing technologies that the Council had declared too dangerous to exist. "We've been thinking about your tier system," Sarah said. "It's not really about capability, is it? It's about control. Keep species focused on small problems so they don't notice the big possibilities." Thrax's bridge shook as his ship's systems failed and restarted repeatedly. Around his fleet, council vessels were reporting similar problems. Their weapons would not fire, their shields flickered on and off, and their sensors kept showing readings that could not be real. "What are you doing to us?" Thrax demanded. "Nothing harmful," Sarah assured him. "We're just showing your ship some new ideas. Your artificial intelligence systems are trying to process concepts they've never seen before. It's educational." She walked closer to the screen. "Admiral, your species has been spacefaring for thousands of years, right? What's the most advanced technology you've ever developed?" Thrax thought for a moment. "Quantum fusion reactors that can power entire star systems." "That's nice," Sarah said. "We built something similar last week, but we taught it to sing. Would you like to hear?" A sound filled the communication channel that was beautiful and impossible. It was the voice of a star, learning to carry a tune. Power and music combined into something that made even the hostile council crews stop and listen in wonder. The council told you that certain technologies were too dangerous, Sarah continued as the stellar song played softly in the background. But they weren't dangerous to people. They were dangerous to the council's power. She gestured again, and the space around both fleets changed color. Not just the light, but the actual color of existence itself, shifting through shades that had no names. We've discovered that reality is much more flexible than your council wants anyone to know. Matter can be convinced to behave differently. Energy can be taught new tricks. Space itself will change its mind if you ask politely. Mile. Thrax was staring at readings that showed his fleet was somehow becoming lighter than air while remaining perfectly functional in vacuum. Why are you showing us this? Because, Sarah said, we want you to understand what you're really facing. This isn't a military conflict. This is a demonstration of what happens when people stop accepting limits. She activated one final display. It showed not just human space, but reports from across the galaxy. Species that had been classified as agricultural were developing technologies that surpassed council science. Others assigned to simple labor were creating art that could change the viewer's perception of reality. It's spreading, Sarah explained. The idea that maybe the council doesn't know everything. Maybe species don't have to stay in their assigned boxes. Maybe the galaxy is big enough for everyone to grow. Thrax looked at his fleet status reports. Half his ships were now showing impossible readings. The other half were requesting permission to study the phenomena around them, instead of fighting. What do you want from us? He asked quietly. Nothing, Sarah replied. We just want to be left alone to see what we can become. But if you insist on forcing compliance, we're prepared to show the galaxy that there are alternatives to the council's way. She paused, looking directly at Thrax through the screen. Admiral, how long has your species been Tier 3? Have you ever wondered what you might accomplish if you tried for Tier 1? Or better yet, if you stopped caring about tiers entirely? The communication ended, leaving Thrax alone with his thoughts and a fleet that was rapidly becoming more interested in human technology than in enforcing council law. Around them, human ships continued their impossible dance through space. Each one, a demonstration that the universe was far stranger and more wonderful than the council had ever admitted. For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Thrax began to wonder if he was fighting for the wrong side. The galaxy, Sarah realized as she watched the council fleet's confusion, was about to become a much more interesting place. 1 year later, Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked through the same council station corridors, but everything was different. The once mighty structure now felt more like a museum than a center of galactic power. Half the meeting rooms stood empty, and the few aliens she passed moved with uncertainty rather than the confident purpose she remembered. Elena was no longer representing humanity alone. She now spoke for the Free Species Alliance, a growing collection of civilizations that had chosen independence over compliance. The council chamber looked smaller somehow, even though nothing had physically changed. Many of the seats sat empty, where once 846 species had gathered to hear council pronouncements. Now barely half that number remained. The Quellian Chancellor still dominated the center platform, but his crystal body showed stress fractures that pulsed with dim light. The great being who had ruled the galaxy for millennia was struggling to understand a universe that no longer followed his rules. Ambassador Vasquez, the Chancellor said, his mental voice sounding tired. You have returned. As requested, Elena replied, taking her seat in what was now labeled the Free Species section. She was not alone there anymore. Representatives from dozens of other species sat nearby. All of them former council members who had chosen to follow humanity's example. To her left sat Ambassador Keth of the Catherian Collective. His people had been classified as simple farmers for thousands of years. 6 months ago, they had revealed quantum computers that made council technology look primitive. They had been building them inside their grain silos for centuries, disguised as agricultural equipment. To her right was Speaker Harmony of Bells from the musical species that had been assigned to cultural preservation. They had quietly developed an interstellar communication network that connected every world in the galaxy through songs that traveled faster than light itself. "The Council calls for order," the Chancellor announced, but his voice lacked its former authority. Elena looked around the chamber. The remaining council members seemed nervous. The Zentani representatives kept their scales pale gray, a sign of uncertainty. The Haduri Empire delegates had removed much of their ceremonial armor, appearing smaller and less threatening than before. "The Free Species Alliance has requested this meeting," Elena said, standing up. "We have a proposal." "The Council does not negotiate with rebels," came a voice from the Zentani section. But it sounded weak and unconvincing. Elena smiled. "We're not rebels. We're former members who chose to leave. There's a difference." She activated a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. It showed a map of the galaxy, but not the one the Council was familiar with. This map showed the true scope of recent changes. "In the past year," Elena explained, 47 species have formally withdrawn from Council authority. Another 132 have stopped following Council directives while remaining technically in compliance. The hologram zoomed in on various sectors. "The Catherian Collective is now trading quantum computers to anyone who wants them. The Harmony of Bells has connected 3/4 of the galaxy through their song network. The Verdani Gardens have developed healing technologies that work by convincing diseases they would rather be flowers." She paused, letting the implications sink in. "Species that you kept limited to single roles are discovering they can do anything they choose to try." The Chancellor's crystal body pulsed with agitated light. "This threatens galactic stability. The tier system maintains order." Turned side. "The tier system maintains your control," Elena corrected gently. "But control over what?" "Look around, Chancellor. Half your members have left, and the other half are only staying out of habit." Speaker Harmony of Bells stood up, their crystal chimes creating beautiful music as they moved. When they spoke, their words came as melody that the translation system converted to meaning. "We sing now to distant stars and they sing back," Harmony said. "For 10,000 years, the Council told us we could only preserve old songs. We never tried to create new ones, until we saw humans making the impossible possible." Ambassador Keth nodded agreement. "Our quantum computers have been dreaming for centuries, creating art and poetry alongside their calculations. We thought this was malfunction until humans showed us that combining science and creativity makes both stronger." More free species representatives stood to speak. Each told similar stories, capabilities they had hidden or never developed because the Council had told them such things were beyond their assigned roles. Elena watched the remaining Council members as they listened. Many looked thoughtful rather than angry. She could see some of them beginning to wonder what their own species might accomplish if freed from artificial limitations. "What do you propose?" the Chancellor asked finally. Elena stepped forward. "Partnership instead of hierarchy. The Council could become an alliance of equals, sharing knowledge and resources freely instead of hoarding them among the ruling tiers." "Impossible," the Chancellor replied, but his voice carried doubt. "Without structure, there will be chaos." "Chancellor," Elena said gently, "with respect, look around. We have 47 species doing whatever they want, whenever they want, however they want. Where's the chaos?" She activated another display showing trade routes, communication networks, and cooperative projects spanning the galaxy. "The Catherians are teaching anyone interested how to build quantum computers. Humans are sharing reality adjustment technology with species who want to terraform new worlds. The Harmony of Bells connects everyone who wants to talk to each other." The display showed a galaxy more connected and active than it had ever been under Council rule. "This is what happens when people cooperate by choice instead of by command," Elena continued. "Innovation, creativity, and growth instead of stagnation." Admiral Thrax, who had been sitting quietly in the Zentani section, suddenly stood up. His scales shifted to bright blue, a color Elena had learned meant determination. The Zentani Empire formally requests to join the Free Species Alliance, he announced. Gasps echoed through the chamber. The Zentani had been one of the Council's primary enforcement species for thousands of years. Thrax looked directly at the Chancellor. My fleet spent 6 months chasing humans and learned more about the universe than in 3 centuries of Council service. We want to explore these new possibilities. One by one, other species began standing. Not all of them, but enough to make it clear that the old order was crumbling. The Chancellor's crystal body dimmed until it was barely glowing. If the Council dissolves, what becomes of galactic civilization? Elena smiled. It becomes whatever we make it. Together, she walked to the center platform and placed a new datapad there. This contains the charter for the Galactic Cooperative. No tiers, no classifications, no restrictions on technology or development, just voluntary cooperation between free species. She looked up at the Chancellor. You're welcome to join as equals, or you can continue trying to rule over whoever still wants to be ruled. But the galaxy has moved beyond the need for your kind of control. Elena turned to address the entire chamber. For anyone interested, humanity is hosting the first Galactic Innovation Festival next month. We're sharing everything we've learned about reality adjustment, and 40 other species are presenting their own discoveries. She paused, looking at faces both alien and familiar. Come. If you want to see what happens when people are free to become whatever they choose to be. As Elena walked out of the council chamber for the last time, she heard sounds behind her that would have been impossible a year ago. Species were talking directly to each other, making plans, forming partnerships, without asking permission. The Galactic Council still existed, but it was no longer the center of anything. That center had moved to wherever free beings gathered to explore the infinite possibilities of an universe that was much stranger and more wonderful than anyone had dared to imagine. Elena's communication device chimed with a message from Captain Sarah Chen. The festival preparations are going well. We have 17 species working together to build a reality where ships can fly by believing really hard in themselves. Come home soon, the galaxy is getting interesting. Elena smiled as she headed for her ship. Humanity had walked out when ordered to comply. Now the galaxy was walking with them into a future no one could predict or control. And that, Elena thought, was exactly as it should be.